We know the San Jose Sharks are interested in Matthew Schaefer. We know the Islanders have said it'll take a lot for them to trade away the first overall pick. Today, we discuss a deal that would have a huge impact on both teams. We've got that and a lot more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. And wow, so much to get to today. We're going to talk a little bit about a possible trade. We know the San Jose Sharks are interested in Matthew Schaefer. What will it take for the Islanders to agree to a deal? Brock Nelson has signed and will not be a free agent. We'll talk about what it means for him and for the Islanders, and we will continue our player-by-player analysis of the team with Noah Dobson. So we're going to start today off with that number 1 pick. It is what's on everybody's mind as we get closer and closer to the 2025 NHL draft. That is coming up in 3.5 weeks now. And the Islanders, with that first overall pick, they're holding all the cards. And we know that according to most scouts, Matthew Schaefer, the defenseman of the Erie Otters, is considered the top overall pick. And then you have Michael Misa and you have James Hagens and a few other potential top picks. We know the Islanders have the first overall pick in this draft. And we know the San Jose Sharks have the second overall pick in this draft. What will it take if the Sharks really want to get Schaefer for them to lock him up, to get that first pick from the Islanders? Now, keep in mind, Matthew Darche indicated that the Islanders would not be trading away the first overall pick unless, his quote, somebody knocks his socks off. And, what will that take as far as, what qualifies as knocking someone's socks off? And in my mind, first of all, there's got to be a first-round pick in this year's draft that is probably top 3 or 4, 5 at most. Okay? Someone throwing in pick 28, probably not going to get it done unless there's an elite player also coming across to the Islanders as part of the deal. And that's not likely to necessarily happen. So, everydayers, you may recall, we did a crossover episode about a week ago with JD Young of Locked On Sharks. Great episode. I highly recommend that you all check it out. And we discussed in that episode, what the value of trading even from 2 to 1 would be according to different, charts that give you the value of each pick. And it was a lot. It was a lot. It was 2 first-round picks and a player or a prospect. It was a high amount of compensation. Basically, more or less what Matthew Darche said it would take to bowl someone over. Well, one player that JD did not want to part with, but I think who the Islanders should insist as being part of this deal if they're going to make a move is defenseman Sam Dickinson. Now, Dickinson was a first-round pick, 11th overall by the Sharks last year. He is 6'3", 210 pounds. He is a left shot defenseman from Toronto. His numbers with the London Knights this past year: 55 games, 29 goals, 91 points, plus 64, plus minus. And in the playoffs, in 17 games, 9 goals and 31 points. Again, 6'3", 210 pounds. He is absolutely the kind of player you would need to include in this deal. He is a 2-time OHL champion, won the Memorial Cup with London, and just, again, playing at an extremely high level. And, you know, if you trade back to 2 and you grab Michael Misa and you end up adding a player the caliber of Dickinson, you are helping this team. And the other bonus to consider, number one, you still get the goal scorer that many people, you know, feel the Islanders really could use. And I agree. The Islanders need help in a lot of areas right now, okay? Other than goalie, and they do maybe need a backup if Semyon Varlamov is not ready. And let's face it, Varley's also getting up there in years. But they need a lot of things. But if you can add Dickinson and then have your pick of Hagens or Misa, you're adding more assets. This team, while they are reluctant to admit it, the New York Islanders need to have an influx of young talent. And yeah, I know publicly the Islanders front office is saying, we want to make the playoffs this year. We want to become a perennial contender. But you know what? It is more important for the Islanders to become that perennial contender and to have, if necessary, a little bit of patience to get there. But adding Dickinson and then let's say Misa speeds up that timetable and you get the best of both worlds. And from a Sharks perspective, you know, if they really want Schaefer, if they really feel he's the real deal, step up, make that trade, and you can have Schaefer. We'll take Dickinson. Then we'll turn around and probably take Misa, and on you go. That, to me, would qualify as knocking someone's socks off. So, you know, what does it take? Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit more about Sam Dickinson. One prospect publication said he is a highly effective defender and stands out among his peers for his aggressiveness, defensive intelligence, and physicality. Not bad. Not bad at all. And again, just somebody who really has the ability to, he's really solid in his own zone. He's listed as an above average NHL skater. He's got above average compete, a high end shot. Scouts have compared him to Noah Hannafin, among other players. Hockey sense is maybe a little bit of a concern to some, more in the offensive zone than in the defensive zone. I think he kind of projects as a second power play unit quarterback with the potential to possibly develop into a first. But it also does this if you're the Islanders. And here's another reason why this would be a win-win. Schaefer is 17, barely by 10 days made the draft cutoff for this year. Dickinson's a year older. He will be NHL ready sooner. So if you're going to add Misa and Dickinson, and then you have 2 first-round picks in 2026, and you've got Caleb Ritchie coming into the league most likely this year, and then Cole Iserman probably coming the year after. All of a sudden, that young talent that this team has lacked for so long starts getting stockpiled. Now, I know the Sharks don't want to part with Dickinson, but you know what? If I'm Matthew Darche, I say, let's see how badly you really want Schaefer. Because the Islanders would be perfectly content to take Schaefer and build around him. So knock my socks off, San Jose. That would be what I would do if I were Matthew Darche. I am perfectly happy taking Matthew Schaefer. And I would remind the Sharks that if they don't make a move, some other team might make an offer that I, Matthew Darche, could not refuse. It would maybe even be better to take that number 1 overall pick. So if you want Matthew Schaefer, show me how badly. And let's see whether or not this could turn into a win for the Sharks, a win-win for the Islanders, where you speed up the retool, because this team needs the retool. We're going to see how it all plays out. This is going to be interesting, but to me, it's an important part of any trade this team would make. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. Brock Nelson not going to hit free agency. We're going to talk about what his new contract means and what it says about the Islanders. We'll also have Noah Dobson's season and his future role with the team. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who was with the Islanders in the mid to late 1990s. We've got that and a lot more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. I mean, I love eating out, but not at the expense of my financial future. So instead of juggling multiple apps, you can now use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Brock Nelson insisted to Lou Lamoriello at the trade deadline he was going to test the market. Guess what? He's not testing the market. Brock Nelson signing a 3-year contract extension with the Colorado Avalanche, the team that the Islanders traded him to at the trade deadline. And it's a 3-year deal with an AAV of $7.5 million, which is roughly what was reported to have been Lou Lamoriello's offer before the trade deadline in his misguided attempt to re-sign Brock Nelson. Now, according to the Hockey News, The Islanders' offer may have even been a little higher. So what does that say about where Brock Nelson is at, and how does it reflect on the Islanders right now? First of all, it basically says that Brock Nelson liked his experience in Colorado, felt good being in Denver, and maybe felt at this stage in his career that the Islanders were not in a place that would allow him to legitimately contend for a Stanley Cup in the remaining, let's say, 3 or 4 years of his NHL career. He played in 19 games with Colorado, had 6 goals, 7 assists. In the playoffs, though, no goals, 4 assists in 7 games. Brock is staying in Denver. And the fact that he turned down a very similar offer, or even a slightly better offer from the Islanders, not a good thing. It doesn't speak well about where this team was at the trade deadline. And look, I wish Brock Nelson all the luck in the world. He was a great Islander. He helped this team in numerous ways, and I am glad to see. I hope he's happy in Colorado. And I would even love to see him, if the Islanders are not going to win a Stanley Cup, I would love to see Brock Nelson lift the cup at some point before he retires. Maybe it's possible that this deal became more realistic because of Brock's less than spectacular performance in the playoffs. Maybe that hurt his market value, because let's face it, you're not going to take $7.5 million AAV from the Avalanche if your agent tested the market or felt out the market and realized, hey, Brock, you can get $8.5 million for 3 years if you hit the open market. Teams will bid on you. Probably found out that if he's going to get anything more, it would only be slight. And he was obviously happy in Denver. But the fact that he took roughly the same, or maybe even a little less money to go to Colorado than to stay on the island, it just reiterates again that change was necessary moving on from Lou Lamoriello to get this team out of the muddy middle. And hopefully Matthew Darche will be able to do that. And Brock Nelson, 3 years, takes him to what, 37, 38 by the time the contract is over? Probably his last substantial contract in the NHL. And we'll see how Callum Ritchie does, what the Islanders do with that top pick, first round pick next year, how this trade looks in 5 years, let's say. 5 years. But I think it reflects poorly on the Islanders overall that Brock Nelson was willing to leave essentially for less. One other piece of news I wanted to discuss, it was reported on Wednesday that, the New York Islanders will host some kind of event at UBS, an all-star type event at UBS in 2027, although the exact format is still up in the air. So we knew the Islanders were supposed to host the all-star game this coming winter. It was announced that, that is not going to happen, but there will be some kind of a pre-Olympic kickoff event And now we know next year there will be some kind of an all-star event format yet to be determined. Again, to me, having some kind of Four Nations or equivalent at UBS would be much better than anything directly related to an all-star game, but it remains to be seen what the league is going to do. We take this one step at a time, and at least the Islanders will get something, and let's hope that the league makes it something good. All right, more to get to on today's show. We continue our player-by-player analysis of the Islanders with defenseman Noah Dobson. What was his season like? And his future role on the Islanders. This could be an interesting one. We've got that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Noah Dobson. Boy, is there a lot of Noah Dobson talk out there this offseason. And I get it. I get it. Why? First of all, this is the situation where he is a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. You are going to have to pony up a lot of money. Either this year he's getting a substantial raise, but either you sign him to a bridge deal, you go to arbitration on the 1-year deal, or you sign him to that really long, 8-year, $10 million, $9 million a year contract that commits to Dobson, and you go from there. And I got to say, this year was a very big disappointment for Noah Dobson. He played in 71 games. He matched his goal total of 10 from the previous season, but only had 39 points after getting a career-high 70. The 39 points, the lowest he's had in a full NHL season. He had 3 other NHL seasons where he played 71 games or more. And in all the other ones, he scored 49, 51, and 70 points. He went from a plus 12 a year ago to a minus 16 this season. And a big part of the problem for Noah Dobson, his offense and his passing were not as good as they were, obviously, the previous season. And look, the injuries to so many Islanders players did not help. But a bigger part of the problem is Noah Dobson remains a defensive liability. He has good skating skills. He has some speed. He passes the puck pretty well most of the time. His hockey sense is, could be better. But in his own zone, he makes far too many mistakes, turns the puck over, and everydayers, I've talked about this throughout the season. Islander fans, how many times were you watching the broadcast where you see a player wide open in a prime scoring position in the Islander zone, and Noah Dobson arrives a second and a half later after the opposing player has put the puck in the net? The best defense. Look, Noah Dobson's job is not to be a defensive defenseman. He is never going to be Dave Langevin or Zdeno Chara. But he's got to be at least average. He's got to put the effort in. And his defense is just not good. Get me to average. Get me to acceptable. It doesn't have to be great. Get me to average. He didn't do that. He had 108 giveaways in 71 games this year. Keep in mind that he had only 62 the previous season. And I know takeaways and giveaways in the NHL are a little weird in the way they're calculated. But just to know that the number went up 46 giveaways more in this past season than the season before, it tells you a lot about his poor defensive play. How many times he failed to clear the puck. How many times he was out-muscled for the puck. All of that has to change. And now the question is, will it? If Noah Dobson returns to the Islanders, I do expect him to be a top 4 defenseman, probably on the top power play unit. I expect his role to remain unchanged. But when he was teamed with Zdeno Chara, that was when Dobson played his best defensive hockey. It wasn't better than average, but that's what we need from Noah Dobson. They've got to find the right partner for him in order to cover up for his defensive deficiencies. And then you get a solid player. Now, I'm reluctant to commit to, let's just give a round number, $9 million for 8 years on a guy who is such a defensive liability and who is coming off a pretty mediocre offensive season. There's been talk of possibly including Dobson in a trade. I think that's unlikely. Matthew Darche said he was part of the core, but obviously that can be changed. We'll see. But I think Dobson is back. We'll see whether or not they go to arbitration, sign a bridge deal, which is what I would prefer, or lock him up long-term. The advantage to locking him up long-term now is he's coming off an off year, and you can maybe use that as a little bit of leverage to lower the price a smidge. But believe me, 70-point right-shot defensemen do not grow on trees, and Dobson is going to get paid. The question is by who and how much. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And, well, we're still playing a little bit of catch-up here, but Tuesday was the 59th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Doug Huda, the Blairmore, Alberta native, 6'2", 209, a second-round pick of the Red Wings back in 1984. Made his NHL debut with Detroit in 85-86. Later played for the Hartford Whalers, the LA Kings, the Buffalo Sabres, and joined the Islanders in the 96-97 season, spent a year and a half on the island, and then finished up his career with the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, the Detroit Red Wings, and the Buffalo Sabres. Ended up playing in 561 career NHL games, 19 goals, 82 points, 1,104 penalty minutes, had 3 assists in 18 NHL playoff games, none of those, unfortunately, with the Islanders. But Doug Huda, pretty solid defenseman, not big offensively. One of his better games as an Islander, December 26, 1996, Islanders hosting the Devils at the Old Barn, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Eric Fichaud, the goalie for the Islanders, Mark Tambrodor, the goalie for the Devils. And in this game, with the Devils up 1-0, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Doug Huda ties the game early in the third period. Derek King and Brian Smolinski with the assist. Islanders go on to win this one in their fisherman jerseys by a score of 4-1 for Doug Huda. He had the goal on 2 shots and was a +1. Doug Huda is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You could find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. That's on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this critical offseason. It's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, so reach out. Always good to talk a little hockey even in the summer. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have some more news about the draft and the combine and what's going on up there. We'll also continue our player-by-player analysis of this team with Mike Riley, so make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.